With her trademark bob and dark sunglasses, Anna Wintour rules the $300 billion American fashion universe.
Anna is the single most influential individual in the world of fashion.
As editor of Vogue Magazine, she has become a celebrity herself. With a reputation as fairy godmother to some,
Anna Wintour's approval is important in anything I do.
And fire-breathing dragon to others.
I've heard names, Ice Queen, Nuclear Winter. I'm sure she's demanding. To get results, you do have to be demanding.
Is she warm and fuzzy? No. Why should she have to be?
Her influence has moved beyond the pages of the glossy magazine. She's a pace setter and power broker.
She is the woman that brought fashion to big business and to the world, globally.
I don't know anything about fashion, and I don't read Vogue regularly, but I know a lot about you.
Vogue editor Anna Wintour confronted her storied reputation head-on in a rare late-night television appearance.
I read in the New York Times this week that I'm an ice queen. I'm the Sun King. I'm an alien fleeing from District 9, and I'm a dominatrix. So I reckon that makes me a lukewarm royalty with a whip from outer space. What do you think?
Good gig.
Her gig is editor-in-chief of Vogue Magazine. For 22 years, the powerful and intimidating Queen Bee has told women what and who to wear. Long skirts or short, royal blue or navy, or that gray is the new black.
I adore fashion. I adore what it says about women. Vogue has a recognition that no other magazine has, and it's deeply satisfying to me.
Anna is revolutionary. She revolutionized the whole modern fashion industry.
Anna is someone who responds to competitiveness in a way that you wish everyone did. She doesn't get angry, she gets even.
Wintour manages her media profile carefully and declined to participate in this program. Anna Wintour was ambitious from a young age. Born in London in 1949, she dropped out of school. It was the 60s, and she was captivated by London's cultural and social scene. Her mother, Eleanor, was American, and her British father, Charles, was the hard-nosed editor-in-chief of the London newspaper, The Evening Standard. Laurie Schechter began her career as Anna Wintour's assistant.
She grew up in a home with a journalist, a newsman. There's a certain standard and rigor of work there that definitely got passed on to her and is the way she approaches everything that she does now.
When she was 20, Wintour got her well-dressed foot in the door at the newly formed British magazine Harper's and Queen. She was intensely competitive. She angled to work with the best photographers to climb up the ladder. But after 5 years at Harper's and Queen, she was passed over for the position of editor-in-chief. She left the magazine and England, and in 1975 headed to New York's 7th Avenue. Vera Wang sits on top of her own fashion empire and has known Wintour for over 30 years.
She was not Anna Wintour, high priestess of Vogue. She was my friend, and we were two girls that were looking to get something going in the fashion industry. And Anna was definitely set about going into the magazine business, and particularly Vogue.
But Vogue would have to wait. Wintour's first job in New York was at Harper's Bazaar. She was fired for being, as she claimed in a newspaper interview, too European. After a few months without work, she accepted a job offer from Penthouse magazine publisher Bob Guccione as fashion editor at Viva, an erotic magazine for women. Her fashion layouts won recognition. A few years later, she landed her first big job. Fashion editor at New York Magazine.
She was a complete mystery, fascinating mystery. She wore the dark glasses pretty much 100% of the time. It is sink or swim. She tells you what she wants, and she's not going to tell you how to do it. I lost 8 pounds in 2 weeks, and it's just because it was constant.
Wintour was building a reputation for stylish layouts and a relentless work ethic.
She had a very set agenda. She has had the courage and the guts and the intelligence and the energy to do all of this.
It wasn't long before the executives at Condé Nast, Cy Newhouse, and Alexander Lieberman took notice. Tom Florio was the publishing director at Vogue and has known Wintour for 30 years.
In those early days of Condé Nast, it almost felt like a young Hollywood studio, you know, and Mr. Newhouse with Alex just had this great sense of how to build not only magazines, but personalities to lead these magazines. The organization really embraced people with vision and determination and drive.
No one had more of that drive than Anna Wintour. She was rewarded with a job at Vogue, created just for her. It wasn't the job she was aiming for. That was already taken by longtime editor-in-chief, Grace Mirabella.
There was obviously resistance, but when Anna comes in, she's not a wallflower, and she's going to make her point of view known, and that's why she was brought there.
Wintour's point of view was not welcomed by Mirabella. In her autobiography, Mirabella described the new creative director as cold and suspicious, always working against her to undermine her authority. She wrote that she felt Wintour was being groomed for her job.
I think there were those who felt threatened. They didn't know her, they didn't know quite why she was there, and they weren't going to necessarily welcome anyone new, let alone someone like Anna, who cut quite a striking figure, caught your eye, and definitely had the attention of the major decision makers at Condé Nast.
After a 3-year power struggle, Condé Nast put an ocean between them. They offered Wintour a promotion to editor-in-chief of British Vogue. Moving up the corporate ladder brought new excitement, but it came at a tough personal cost. She moved to London with her new baby, while her husband stayed behind in New York. Anna Wintour arrived in London in 1986 and immediately began to alter the shape of British Vogue.
In some ways, she brought it more down to earth for those who wanted to maybe actually find things that they could buy, and made it more serviceable for the reader.
The readers may have enjoyed the change, but her staff was not as accepting. They gave her a nickname that stuck, Nuclear Winter.
It's a little bit the Greta Garbo thing. If you don't say a lot and don't sort of engage people, but that, you know, then leaves the rest of the world to make up what they think is the truth.
Is she warm and fuzzy? You know, no. Why should she have to be? Is she someone you'd like her opinion? Absolutely.
After 18 months, Condé Nast brought their up-and-coming star back to New York to overhaul their shelter magazine, House and Garden. Wintour changed the title to HG. Out were photos of empty rooms. In were lavish spreads of celebrities in their homes. Readers revolted, and the magazine was forced to hand out subscription refunds. Terry Agins is a former senior fashion writer for the Wall Street Journal and the author of The End of Fashion.
I mean, that's why I call Anna revolutionary, because, I mean, even her plan to, like, come in and do something that radical to an established magazine, the prospect for failure is high when you do something that gutsy.
These failures would have ended many a career, but not Anna Wintour's. Condé Nast still had other plans for her. It was the worst-kept secret in the fashion world.
There had been rumors that Miss Wintour would become the editor of American Vogue, replacing the veteran Grace Mirabella. Well, now the hot publishing story is that this probably will happen.
After 17 years, Mirabella was out. 38-year-old Anna Wintour got the job she always wanted. Her vision was clear from her first cover. She paired a $10,000 top with $40 jeans.
That signaled something new, revolutionary. This was a new editor. She was British, she was stylish, she was young, and, you know, and she really had a point of view. We knew that this was going to be a new era.
In a December 1988 interview, Wintour explained what it takes to be editor-in-chief of Vogue.
That, I think, is what's so important in this job, is to have the right kind of instinct and gut reaction to produce a magazine that is of the moment, that just captures what's going on right now. I mean, that's what it is to be in Vogue.
Mirabella's traditional headshots were replaced with Wintour's fresh new look. She spared no expense on elaborate photo shoots with the best photographers.
Anna knew just how to balance our desire for escape and for beauty and for real fashion with our need to have things that are relevant to us as women, things that fit into our lifestyle and who we are and where we've come.
Once again, Wintour saw the allure of celebrities and replaced supermodels with superstars on the cover. Filmmaker R.J. Cutler.
Very early on, Anna Wintour saw that celebrity, power, global industry, and fashion were all coming together.
We had the mega brands, Gucci, Prada, LVMH. Working women became executive women, and so they needed power suits for work.
She understood the glamour of high fashion, the desire to make people dream, to aspire, to inspire, but she also understood how fashion as a business had changed.
Wintour's growing reputation captured increased advertising dollars. Ed Nardoza is the editor of Women's Wear Daily.
The advertising business can be very fickle. You have to build loyalty over time. You have to provide real value and reasons for advertisers to consistently stay in your publications, because it is one of the most competitive industries in the world.
In 10 years, ad revenues climbed from just over $87 million to nearly $150 million. Vogue's success brought Wintour increased power. Her front row appearances at fashion shows wearing her trademark dark glasses took on new meaning. Every glacial expression was scanned for clues.
And became someone very important to have at your show. When she's there, it validates the show, that the show was cool. That means that the show is like a big deal.
Vogue, under Wintour, was on a journey from magazine to brand. Success brought Wintour increased public scrutiny. In 1999, the tabloids ran with the story of her divorce and her relationship with millionaire Texas communications executive Shelby Bryan.
People gossip and speculate about her every move, but she has just basically risen above it. And I think it's a smart thing to do.
Undistracted, Wintour was focusing her attention on what was ahead for Vogue. Her answer was invariably the same.
People are always asking, well, was that your favorite collection? Was that your favorite issue? And to me, it's always the next one. It's the idea of what is to come. It's always the future, always the future.
Most editors don't think beyond their title, but Anna thinks about the world and how it impacts the title, but also how the title can impact the world.
Charles Townsend is the CEO of Condé Nast Publications.
She's involved in all aspects of the Globe brand, whether it's marketing the brand to the consumer, whether it's marketing the brand to the advertising community. You know, it's political influence, it's social influence. She manages that brand's positioning across all of those parameters.
To extend the brand, in 2003, she launched Teen Vogue. Men's Vogue and Vogue Living followed. In 1 year, ad revenue for Men's Vogue dropped over $1 million. In 2008, Condé Nast cut it to an occasional supplement. U.S. Vogue Living disappeared. Only Teen Vogue survived on the newsstands.
The brand extension didn't quite work, but those were natural and productive experiments.
She takes risks. She works really, really hard. And when life doesn't work, she brushes it off and she recovers and just tries to learn from the situation and move on.
Wintour's increased visibility and her public support of the fur industry attracted some wild confrontations.
During the height of the anti-fur movement, you know, Anna was defiant. She was wearing her furs. The protesters would show up at the shows. She was having lunch at the Four Seasons, and someone put a dead animal in her plate.
If you're walking through Paris and somebody hits you with a pie and knocks you down, that's pretty aggressive. Anybody else would have been upset. She stood up, wiped her face. She said, "This is getting really boring." Went back to the hotel, changed, and made her next meeting.
After that, she started to get protection. She comes into the show, and she's accompanied by these two bodyguards. This also helps stoke the myth that she's, you know, in a class by herself.
She dug in her stylish stilettos, never wavering in her support for the multi-billion-dollar fur industry. The more her reputation grew, the more unwelcome attention she got. The novel The Devil Wears Prada was considered by many in the fashion industry to be a thinly disguised and devastating portrayal of Wintour. The Hollywood version starring Meryl Streep was a huge hit, grossing over $326 million in theaters worldwide.
Give me that little table that I like at that store on Madison. Get us a reservation for dinner tonight at that place. Get me ice. Reviews my
This dragon lady reputation is often portrayed. I think there's some kind of gender issue here. Because she's a woman, people expect her to behave a certain way. And I think if she were a CEO running a company, there would be no issue.
Wintour was now a recognized power broker with wide-reaching relationships throughout the fashion industry.
She's been very instrumental in many of the very large brands when they were looking for a standard bearer or a creator or a designer or a creative director. She has been instrumental in helping those brands succeed as well.
One brand that needed her help was Gap. For years, the company had been suffering from declining sales. They consulted Wintour, and she recommended young designer Patrick Robinson.
So I think she called me and asked just what my thoughts were and sort of gave me some thoughts about what the job sort of could look like. More from how she saw it and just as it was more personal. So it was that simple, but she was a great sounding board for me when I was thinking about the job.
Her matchmaking worked. In 2007, Robinson became Gap's new executive vice president of design.
Anna Wintour's approval is important in anything I do. It still is. She's the first still to this day that sees everything I do.
But after 4 years of lackluster results, the Gap dismissed its star designer. Wintour's interest in supporting new talent led her to create the Vogue Fashion Fund to provide grants and business advice.
You have to keep that feeder system going. Anna was really interested in making certain we continue to have more designers, which means more advertisers and more sales. So all this works together.
Everything came together in September 2007, when Wintour delivered the fall season premiere issue of Vogue. The magazine had a record-breaking 727 pages of advertising.
Anna Wintour's office.
Is anyone coming for this run-through except for me?
It became the subject of the hit documentary, The September Issue, a rare look inside Vogue and the demanding woman running it.
It's gorgeous. I'm not crazy about this one. This I don't think we should do. These are all horrible. She looks pregnant. It looks cheap to me. No. This type seems so large and pretentious. Looks like it's for blind people.
Anna does not look back, she looks forward, she does not doubt, she trusts herself. She requires a thick skin, but, you know, even a thick skin has nerves under it.
She would need steel nerves in 2009.
We found ourselves facing economic circumstances through the recession that we never imagined were possible.
In 2009, the deepest recession in decades was forcing business to slash advertising dollars. Vogue's ad sales for the all-important September issue plunged from 727 pages in 2007 to 429 in 2009. Condé Nast is a private company that does not publicly report financial results. Clearly, the company was under pressure. They shuttered 6 of their magazines and cut hundreds of jobs. But their crown jewel, Vogue, managed its costs and managed to escape drastic cuts. 7th Avenue was also being squeezed by a shopping slowdown. Wintour took on a new mission.
New Yorkers?
You're always in fashion. Always in fashion.
Her idea was a worldwide retail extravaganza called Fashion's Night Out.
The entire fashion industry is counting on you.
Thank you for coming out tonight.
It turned out that this was an unprecedented event that brought together over 1,000 retailers around the world, and thousands of consumers flooded the stores.
It was so successful that it has become an annual event.
We want to thank everybody for coming out. How y'all feeling tonight?
Wintour also stepped in to save one of New York City's treasures, the Costume Institute at the Metropolitan Museum of Art. As fundraiser-in-chief, she hosts the annual gala.
It was something that rivaled even the Oscars.
Emily Rafferty is president of the Metropolitan Museum of Art.
This last year, we raised in one night, through her leadership, over $9 million, even in a time of recession.
There are other formidable challenges in front of Wintour. Condé Nast has admittedly been slow to adapt to the digital age. Now, Vogue and Wintour's future depend on it.
Any monthly magazine really needs to examine that there's demand for immediate information. How do you supply that demand?
Her monthly magazine faces increasing competition from bloggers and interactive websites that have given designers a new platform to instantly showcase their designs and simultaneously sell their products, relying less on glossy photo spreads in Vogue.
This season, Philip Lim is all about outerwear.
Wintour now shares the coveted front row with new media.
I guarantee you that Anna will change the game of digitized content. We're taking branded content with her voice to millions of consumers that we couldn't possibly touch with a magazine as an exclusive medium.
Wintour, her colleagues and critics alike believe, has transcended the medium. She has become the curator of worldwide fashion.
Anna does something almost every day. That's huge. She always has an idea of pushing this industry and sort of pushing it further and further.
This is a multi-$100 billion global industry, and that is a byproduct of many things, but one of them is Anna's stewardship of Vogue Magazine in 20-plus years.
She's got this incredible reference point of what good fashion is and what talent is and what creativity is.
She's not here just to say whether a dress looks nice or not, or whether a new shoe is groovy enough. She's really there to encourage the entire industry. Young talent, established talent, these are all difficult balls to keep in there, but she feels that this is her duty. This is her legacy as well. She is the woman that brought fashion really to big business and to the world, globally.
He is the fashion world's reigning superpower.
Whatever aspect of the business that you're in our industry, everybody looks at Ralph Lauren as the model.
A dream maker who netted billions by imagining what others wished for.
Every time I design clothes, I am making a movie.
I don't think anybody since Walt Disney has been as successful in persuading millions and millions of people to buy into his fantasies.
Wherever you go, Ralph Lauren's brands project an aura of rarefied living.
Ralph's brand stands for classic, timeless fashion.
The brand represents your souvenir of this fabulous lifestyle that you want to be a part of.
But his life was not as picture perfect.
My sense was he thought that would be the last time he walked the runway.
It wasn't. Not by a long shot.
We used to joke that he always had the plan to take over the world. He's taken over the world, there's no doubt about it.
Ralph Lauren is the most famous one-man brand on the planet. A brand that is synonymous with a superior lifestyle.
Ralph always knew that he wouldn't win if he didn't take risks. And he's always pushing the envelope.
He keeps himself awake at night. He's worried that he's going to fail.
He's obsessed. He's brilliant, he's irascible, he's difficult, and he can also be kind and interesting and sweet. He's a huge bundle of contradictions.
Lauren insists that the images he creates communicate his story and did not participate in this show. Before he was Ralph Lauren, he was Ralph Lifshitz, the youngest of 4 children who wore his brother's hand-me-downs. Born in 1939 to Jewish immigrant working-class parents, he grew up in the Bronx, New York. His father was a house painter and amateur artist.
Living with someone for whom aesthetics mattered would, of course, affect a child in that household.
Michael Gross is the author of Genuine Authentic, the real life of Ralph Lauren.
He went to yeshiva, and he wore a yarmulke, and he wore all the other paraphernalia of Orthodox Jews every single day. He told me that at the very beginning, when he was living in the Bronx, he would go and escape to the movie theater and literally fall into the fantasies of the movies of that era, which was really, one of the great movie-going eras, the late 40s and early 50s.
Warren Hellstein is one of Lauren's boyhood friends.
We all, as kids, looked at the movie screens and the actors and how good they looked. I know Ralph particularly liked Fred Astaire.
And he truly did project himself into the scenes in which men like Gary Cooper and Cary Grant were playing. He sees the characters that populate his dreams and his visions. And that vision, that ability to step into a fantasy world, Ralph brought to the fashion business.
In one of his only 2 major television interviews ever, Lauren told Charlie Rose back in 1993 about the enduring impact of those experiences.
I was very influenced by movies. I was very influenced by a world that had a sense of dream, that had a sense of something else. And what I was influenced in these places was the good guy, the Hopalong Cassidy, not the corny guy, but there was the man on the white horse. My sense was I had an integrity inside me about what I believed in. I did it honestly, but I had a point of view. I was very strong.
Warren Hellstein says that when they were teenagers, Lauren asked Hellstein's father, a tailor, to make him one of his first suits.
But I remember going down to my father's place with him, and it was very difficult. Just said to my father, Dad, do whatever he likes. He says, I can't please him. I said, okay, that's it.
Even though he was a perfectionist, Lauren was a guy's guy.
He liked basketball best, I would say. It was okay. We were all good.
How are you?
In 2011, when Oprah Winfrey came to interview him on his Colorado ranch, Lauren shared his earliest ambitions.
Did you always want to be a cowboy?
I wanted to be a baseball player. I wanted to be a basketball player. I wanted to be an actor. I wanted to be a dancer. Actually, I wanted to be Batman. If that's a secret, I'm telling you and everyone out there.
When he was in his late teens, he and his brother Jerry opted for a name change.
As Ralph said to me, the problem with the name Lifshitz is it had the word in it. And he endured endless teasing that continued through school, I'm sure, into the Army. I believe that Ralph suggested to me that the name Lauren came from Lauren Bacall, who, was a great style icon as well as a great actress.
Following high school, Lauren worked as a salesman while taking business classes at night. He never got a degree. In 1964, after a short stint in the Army, 26-year-old Lauren married Ricky Lobier, a receptionist he met at a doctor's office.
He married the girl who would look perfect in the convertible with her blonde hair flowing. Ricky became his model, his backstop. Ricky was always, I think, in the back of his mind.
Still looking for his place in the world, Lauren set his sights on New York's fashion industry. He became a salesman for Brooks Brothers, and then a series of necktie manufacturers.
I took him to his first polo match at Blindbrook, where we were exposed to fabulous things. The silver, the leather, the horses, the tall, slinky blondes, big hats, and just a high society that we really weren't knowledgeable of. But certainly, it didn't take us a moment to appreciate it.
That fabulous world transformed Lauren's vision.
He called me up and said he was going to open up his own business. And what was my opinion about the name? And he said he had it down to players or polo. And I said, Ralph, polo is totally elitist. Hardly anybody knows anything about it. But everybody plays something. So there's no choice. It's got to be players. He said, okay, thanks a lot. Goodbye. And then the rest is history.
It was the era of plain, narrow ties when Lauren offered up a radical design concept, colorful, wide ties. Striking out on his own, one of his first stops, Bloomingdale's. Marvin Traub was the former CEO and president of Bloomingdale's. Shortly before he died, he spoke about the brash young designer.
He showed them to the Bloomingdale tie buyer, who said, I like them, I'll buy them, but I don't want that Ralph Lauren label on it. I want a Bloomingdale label. Now here's Ralph starting and struggling in business, about to get an order from Bloomingdale's. He closed his sample case and said, I will not accept the order without my name.
Several months after Ralph Lauren walked away from an offer at Bloomingdale's, the renowned store called him back.
I thought the ties were terrific, and if he wanted his name on it, that was fine, because I felt the ties would sell.
And they did. Other well-known names in men's clothing also wanted in, including Paul Stewart and Neiman Marcus. Within a year, Lauren sold a whopping $500,000 of ties. The designer had designs on something even bigger, to expand his brand. He aimed to do so, he told Charlie Rose, by envisioning clothing that he himself would want to wear.
What you thought you can buy in England, what you thought Cary Grant was wearing and Fred Astaire, you could not walk into a store and buy. When I came along, the business was not at all like the things that I made. You could not buy. You couldn't find it.
Bloomingdale's saw potential and profit in Lauren's line.
We worked closely from the ties to men's shirts to suits, sport coats, slacks, the total men's collection. And then he came and said, Marvin, I'd like to do a women's business.
I think the most important break for Ralph Lauren was probably getting a boutique of his own in Bloomingdale's. It was the moment when someone outside of Ralph's fantasy existence agreed with him and brought him into the world of commerce.
This was the first time that Bloomingdale's had given a designer his own in-store boutique.
And the business grew very rapidly. Ralph, as in everything else, knew exactly what he wanted in the shop, what he wanted on the floors, what he wanted on the walls. It created really a Ralph Lauren environment.
And it's all Ralph's dream.
Menswear designer John Varvatos was a protege of Lauren's.
If you go back into the 60s and 70s, people put things on a mannequin. They never told stories. Ralph took you into a fantasy world. Ralph took you to an island. He took you to the Hamptons. He took you to the West.
3 years after his first ties went on sale, Lauren won the Oscar of the fashion industry, the 1970 Coty Award for his menswear line. And in 1971, Lauren bought the first of what would be many luxury cars. Pulitzer Prize architecture and design critic Paul Goldberger has reported on Ralph Lauren's famous car collection.
I think it was a Mercedes convertible that he couldn't quite afford at that point. He bought anyway because he understands that very kind of aspirational reach that he's trying to sell to other people.
He reached back to his earlier fantasy, that polo match, and introduced his signature emblem, the polo player. But despite strong sales, the company found itself in financial trouble. To keep it going, Lauren was forced to invest most of his personal savings, $100,000. He also hired a new business partner, retail executive Peter Strom, who pitched in and bought 10% of the business for $6,000.
I think he was very worried. They were delivering everything late. Their distribution pattern was all wrong. We solved those problems, and we got the right stores to buy the right amount of things, to display everything properly.
2 years after Strom's arrival and back on track, Lauren's brand got a boost when his men's clothes were cast in The Great Gatsby.
His ability to create clothes that looked like costumes, that looked like clothes, that looked like costumes, was unequaled in American fashion.
Hi. Hi.
But I actually think that the claim that he designed Annie Hall was more important.
The Annie Hall look would inspire one of Lauren's earliest women's collections, and the designer himself was often the featured model in his brand's ad campaigns. Commercial director Jeff Madoff has shot many of Ralph Lauren's fashion shows.
He wears this stuff, so he's become the embodiment of what he creates. Like Frank Perdue with his chickens, you know, Ralph in his clothes, there was an authenticity to it.
The company launched a blitz of new collections, including a wide-ranging home collection. Lauren also licensed his name to other products, trading a measure of control for capital. Now flush with cash, in 1986, Ralph Lauren went all in, spending $30 million to open a standalone flagship store housed in New York City's historic Rhinelander mansion.
My wife and I were there opening day at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. And I said, and the store was packed with people. I said, Ralph, how are you doing? He said, I think I'm doing all right. And I said, Ralph, you're a retailer. You can ring off the cash register now. And the manager came back and said, we have $41,000 in. And Ralph said, is that good? And I said, that's very good. Then I went back to my office, and the phone rings about 5:30, and it's Ralph. Marvin, we have $101,000 in. How is that? And I said it was terrific. This was Ralph learning to be a retailer.
I think it told his story to the world. Anybody who came to New York, it's like on the tour guide of New York, you know. You understand Ralph Lauren's message very clearly when you go through there. When you walk by those windows, you get it.
As the business continued to grow, Lauren pushed his employees harder than ever.
There's a vast team of designers and creative executives. They do the designing. They do just about everything, but they bring it to Ralph, and finally, it's Ralph who decides. And there are actually this amazing thing, little tiny stickers that get put up on idea boards, and they say, RL likes. And in that act, Ralph Lauren takes possession of those clothes, of those designs, and deserves the credit.
Ralph pays more attention to detail than anybody I've ever met in my life. And when he is designing and he's looking at the clothes, he'll look and want a lapel ever so much more peaked or ever so much narrower, or he likes the plaid but he wants it to be bigger.
In 1986, the estimated worth of the privately held company was $600 million, and Lauren, not his models, was the cover shot. It would seem that life couldn't get any better for Lauren when he launched his next women's collection. But behind the scenes, something very alarming was shaking up the famed designer.
We were at top of the St. Regis Hotel, and the finale of the show, Ralph came out, and I saw his face unlike I had seen it before. And I saw he was fighting back tears. I started crying, because there was something going on. I didn't even know what it was. It was just visceral.
No one but those closest to him knew that Lauren had been diagnosed with a brain tumor.
It was one of those things that you just didn't want to believe. Couldn't happen to Ralph. What did it mean for the future? There was all those questions at the time.
As I was riding home in the taxi, and I heard on the news reports that designer Ralph Lauren was being admitted for emergency brain surgery. Wow.
Oh, yeah, my God. Sure I worried. I felt so bad for him, you know.
Fortunately, the tumor was benign. After surgery, there was a long road ahead and new priorities.
Oh, I don't think he worried about what would happen to the business. I think he worried about living, about his life.
Lauren shared his ordeal with Charlie Rose.
I remember when I came home from the hospital, and I took a walk in Central Park, and I was very weak. And I saw some guys running in the park, running and sweating. I said to myself, I want to do that.
Several weeks later, Lauren returned to work.
I think he came back even more aggressive than ever. But I think he was a little bit more relaxed, a little bit more laid back, and maybe was valuing every moment a little bit more.
He launched a fitness wear collection and created a top-selling perfume, He's spent millions promoting these lines and the product universe surrounding them. James Fallon, editor of Women's Wear Daily, calls Ralph Lauren a powerhouse in the magazine world.
Because he's one of the biggest advertisers out there. If I launch my fragrance and I take an ad out or a series of ads, you're going to then do a profile of me. I mean, look at the number of magazines that did put him on the cover when he had his 40th anniversary, and that reflects the extent to which they appreciated his financial support in past years.
Appreciated and also depended on it.
A $200 million annual advertising budget is an 800-pound gorilla. Ralph Lauren sits wherever he wants, and if that's the cover of your magazine, Ralph's going to be there.
Lauren's dominance was also evident when Audrey Hepburn presented him with the Council of American Fashion Designers Lifetime Achievement Award.
There was one of his muses, his icons, Audrey Hepburn, the woman that he watched when he was a little kid in the movies, now handing him this statue that for him could have been the Oscar.
Remember the princess? I got her.
With the launch of Lauren's upscale Purple label in 1994, the company looked great to the untrained eye. After all, sales were at an all-time high, but that only told half the story. Heatha Prabhakar is a retail business journalist.
Like every retailer that has big dreams, it just grew too quickly. There was a lot of capital expended in order to make that brand where he wanted to be. That combined with a very lackluster operations in terms of distribution created really a perfect storm for a company that was almost on the brink of bankruptcy.
Lauren needed a lifeline and found it with Goldman Sachs. The investment firm purchased 28% of Polo Ralph Lauren for $135 million.
That was surprising to us because we never realized that he had been that close to the, back to the wall financially. And I think that's sort of what led to the Goldman Sachs investment.
They're very good about identifying where the growth is and what's going to be a company that's going to have long-term growth. And that's exactly what they saw in Ralph Lauren.
And the infusion of cash meant exponential growth, with Polo Ralph Lauren opening new stores and overhauling older ones. By 1997, Ralph Lauren was the top-selling designer in the world. Consumers spent almost $5 billion a year on his products. Goldman Sachs saw greater potential and pressed Lauren to go public. He wasn't so sure.
He always had concerns that once it was a public company, he would have less freedom of action, that it was no longer his own brand because he had shareholders and a board to deal with.
Despite his initial reservations, Ralph Lauren decided to take his company public in June 1997. Liz Dunn, a retail analyst at Macquarie Capital, has been tracking Lauren's company for years.
Part of the challenge with going public is that investors want to see growth quarter to quarter, year to year in a very consistent, linear fashion. And so I think in the early days of the company's history as a public company, they sort of struggled with that.
When he first went public, we would cover his annual meetings, and he would stand in front of his shareholders going, Wall Street doesn't understand me. Our shares are just sitting there. They don't really move. I wish they would get what we do.
Lauren was now working to satisfy his shareholders. The company began to sell in more stores, but sales growth slowed and profit margins declined. And 16 months after its opening day high of $33 a share, it fell below $17.
I know that it tormented him. We talked about it. He talked about it. He was frustrated that Wall Street couldn't see what was abundantly clear to him and always had been since 1967, that he was it, that he was the guy. It drove him crazy. And it was into that environment that came a man named Roger Farah, who was one of the great retail executives in America.
Roger Farah came over and really restructured the unsexy parts of the business, supply chain, operations. One thing he also did, too, was that he bought back those licenses. He brought those brands back in-house and made sure that all those brands were underneath the Ralph Lauren umbrella.
They're going through a tremendous growth period. And I had suggested that we put together something that really codify the Polo brand message. And we called it Ralph Lauren Philosophy.
It's a brand video that Lauren commissioned.
The way I do collections, what inspires me is a story or a theme that gets to me that says, I know how to build this. I don't build a collection from a sleeve or from a specific fabric. I build it out of a dream.
Control to him is very important, and this was a way to present a unified message where he didn't have to be there, but it was like he was there.
Lauren continued to expand. With an eye on international sales, he opened flagship stores in Milan, Tokyo, and even Moscow.
America is represented in France by McDonald's and Ralph Lauren. I mean, you know, which one makes our culture look better? In Paris, I think the Ralph Lauren store, it's really become a kind of symbolic American embassy.
But in the summer of 2012, the all-American designer was attacked when news reports revealed that the Team USA uniforms Lauren designed were not made in the USA.
Made in China. This is China. China!
I think they should take all the uniforms, put them in a big pile, and burn them.
The company said the uniforms for the 2014 Winter Games would be produced in the United States. Throughout his career, Ralph Lauren has carefully cultivated his own image. He has homes on Fifth Avenue, in Jamaica, Long Island, and Bedford, New York, as well as a 17,000-acre ranch in Colorado, where he spends time with his wife and 3 grown children. He also spends time and lots of money on his pet passion.
Cars are fun and toys, and they all offer you a different experience. To me, they're works of art.
This 2010 promotional video announces a Paris exhibit of some of Lauren's 60-plus vintage cars.
He once told me his car collection is something he does first because he just loves cars and responds to them, and he doesn't collect art, unlike most people in his income bracket. He said, you know, you can't drive a painting, and he loves the idea of being able to take any of his cars and drive it around on a Sunday afternoon, say.
Paul Goldberger says that Lauren has changed some of the car's original colors.
He sort of looks at something and says, this is wonderful and exciting and beautiful, but it actually could be even better, and I want to make it even more perfect.
For 40 years, Ralph Lauren's pursuit of perfection has kept him firmly in charge as CEO and chairman of the board of the company that wears his name.
I think that small symbol of the polo pony is enduring, and it's something that customers over a long period of time have chosen. This is probably the best long-term story in my coverage because there are these variety of growth opportunities that are really driving a doubling or more of sales over the next several years.
The former tie salesman at age 72 is one of the world's wealthiest people, worth $7.5 billion.
I think that the last piece of Ralph Lifshitz that remains in Ralph Lauren is a kernel of insecurity. And it is the fuel that runs the engine, that runs the person who personifies the brand.
Ralph doesn't sit on his laurels for 1 minute. Not for 1 minute. I mean, you can enjoy the moment, but you have to understand that you have to keep things going and you can't be a one-trick pony. Speaking of ponies.
It's not one of the most important, but it's never on sale. And how much is that? $14.90. How about this one? $17.90. This one should be $26.50. These are ready and are around $3,500. Around $4,000 at most. It's calfskin with embroidery. Otherwise, there's python skin ranging from $3,000 to $5,000. How about this crocodile skin bag? It's the ultimate precious bag, and that's $29,000. €29,000? Luxury designers famous worldwide aren't feeling the economic squeeze. And in the fashion capital, people crowd in, even on a normal weekday afternoon. Our journey starts in the temple of Milan's designer labels, the fashion district. The queen of Via Monte Napoleone is Gucci. The identity of this brand is based on the craftsmanship of the Florentine masters, and the leather goods are its prestige sector. The same goes for Bottega Veneta, recalling the plating of the leather goods manufacturers from Vicenza, Italian labels owned by the French, and together with YSL and other Kering Group labels, are invoicing in Switzerland. How much are these? $12.90, $14.90. The same price, $14.90, $15.80. Today, we did all kinds of brands. Louis Vuitton, Ferragamo, Lanvin. Mainly, we did a lot of Jimmy Choo, Bottega Veneta, Saint Laurent as well.
Abbiamo fatto quasi 10.000, so dire. Anche Gucci? Anche tutti.
What have you manufactured recently? High boots, they gave me 40.
Mi ha dato 40. Ma lungo. Ah, di questa
Are they from the latest winter collection? Gucci even gave me the sewing machine. Are you using it? Yes, we made a lot of boots with that. Gucci is always asking for boots or sandals. How many do they give you? Every day about 100 pairs, but they're complicated. Just Gucci, every day 100 pairs.
Solo Gucci. Ogni giorno 100 paia.
The man we talked to is a subcontractor, and inside this workshop, the luxury shoes are made. The designer design, the model makers do prototypes, but the big fashion house turned to high-level firms which assign the job to subcontractors, the craftsmen, for the actual production. Our first stop to find out who is sewing the luxury bags and shoes is Riviera del Brenta from Venice, the shoe industry center of excellence, Italy's flagship. The shoemaker's store advised us to come here. They said you make shoe uppers. Yes. Saint Laurent. We made 2,000 pairs of this model. The upper is the visible part of the shoe. Sewing it is the most important manufacturing step in shoemaking. The Chinese specialize in this production. It's similar. What model is that? Ferragamo. How much do they pay you for this? To talk about prices, he makes us move away from the workbenches because the amount he gets from the supplier is not the same of what he pays to the worker who is sewing the shoes. We get 23 for this. I told the worker, let's say, that I give 4 to them and 6 to me. We usually set the prices this way. With Ferragamo, the prices goes higher. How many can they make? Every day, 25 pairs. You pay them by the shoe? They keep working day and night so they can make more? If you're saying that we're not legitimate, almost all the Chinese work this way. It's useless to tell us that we are not legitimate. Payments by pair of shoes and piecework is illegal. If the shoe factory gives the Chinese 23 euros, the worker is paid 4 euros to make a pair of boots. And it's a model by Ferragamo of the current collection. They're from the latest runway show. You're counting a lot on these boots this year. How much are they? $15.50. Is it the difficulty of this production deciding the price? Yes, that's because our shoes are still almost entirely handmade. These are made in Florence. Our headquarters are in Florence. We make them here. This also justifies the price. Who gives you the Saint Laurent orders? Does Saint Laurent know? The Saint Laurent supervisor came to the workshop to check. I'll show you one model. This model with the circles and the ankle strap. This model has been around for 2 years. Would you like to try them on? How much are they? $675. We are talking about the tribute sandal, an iconic model by YSL worn on the red carpet by Adriana Lima, Kylie Minogue, Jennifer Lopez, Julia Roberts, Beyonce. They pay you €9 a pair. How many pairs? For 10,000, €9 just for the upper and another €4 for the coating. How much would a legitimate Italian craftsman cost? A lot, probably, given that since 2000, 150 local upper manufacturers closed down and 300 new Chinese workshops opened at that time. We met on the condition of anonymity, a subcontractor manufacturer who had always sewn designer shoes. The Gucci boot I showed you is sold between 1,300 to 1,800 euros. For that Gucci boot, they gave me 60 euros. The brand pays 180 to the shoe manufacturers that gives me the job. That's 10%. That's why they don't want people to know that the actual cost of the luxury shoes, materials, and manufacturer is 10% to 15% at the most of the final price, all inclusive. Heels, assembly, general expenses, box, everything. Of that, 10% paid by the brand the manufacturers represent a cost between 40 and 60%. It also depends on the type of manufacturer and the type of shoe. A court shoes will take 22 minutes to make. For a Gucci court shoe, they will give me €9. The cost of a craftsman is calculated per minute, but the processing time may vary between 20 minutes and 4 hours depending on the shoe. It's the labor costs, the cost of those who make the shoes, that will get lower. They will strangle you on labor costs because the Chinese will cut them by half. How can they ask for half of the production costs? Because instead of 8 hours, they'll double their working hour, or they get paid under the table. They are boycotting us on hourly rates. If I'm legitimate, I cannot ask for less than 18 to 20 euros per hour. They keep asking to lower our prices, and we, the subcontractors, feel trapped. Indeed, for the YSL sandal, the legitimate manufacturer cost would be around 30 euros. The Chinese told us he gets 9 euros plus 4 euros for the coating, and that's less than half. We brought a shoe upper whose manufacturing cost was estimated at 30 euros. In one day, this price has considerably lowered. Only for the shoe upper, I should decide it. 15 is fine. Yes, 15. How much for this? 8. Good, you can do it, right? If I do it as for the luxury brand, 8 euros. On the international level, there isn't a law forcing fashion house to control their production chain. At the moment, only Gucci has pledged its social responsibility with the ethical certification SA8000. This means ensuring the customer and improving the company's reputation that their products were made respecting the rights of the workers across the entire chain of suppliers and subcontractors. In recent years, some of the Kering Group brands have been more careful regarding the production. Someone from the upper management wants to check. What happens then? The show factory gives us some of the shoes in small quantities, so they can come to us for their inspection and show they are working with good craftsmen. We are only a front. But then, the big quantities go to the Chinese.
I grossi numeri vanno tutti ai cinesi.
Who's to blame if the prices are too low? The brand names at the head of the chain or those who subcontract? The shoe factories signing a contract with the main office? It's hard to determine the legal responsibilities without the transparency of the production chain. This way, as long as sweated labor is concerned, the company can just shrug and say, "I knew nothing about it." There is a connivance of the brands in this because they are the ones imposing the prices the factories must work for. It is no longer the factories making a quote and proposing it, but it's the main office that will impose a production rate. Then the factory will have to recoup within the production chain. It's their problem. We're talking about a product that has such a high markup that all the workers could make a good living. We were asking for more transparency in the production chain. Then again, it takes two to reach an agreement. They never approved it? Our proposals were never accepted. They said the factory had closed down, but it kept working. The Chinese are still there, and they never take a vacation. The dismissal was motivated by the termination of the company. I was also told, "Saturday, you'll work for 8 hours for free." I refused. Right away, to threaten me, they fired a worker. We want to work. It's our right to work legally. We are in the center of Florence. A group of 13 Senegalese workers is demonstrating in front of the building of Region Toscana. Their contract was not renewed after they asked to legalize their working positions. The company in question is Pozzetta, a Chinese-run firm specialized in metalwork, but not of any metalwork. We are talking about the designer buckles of luxury brands. The firm gets work directly from a first level right in front of them. Our firm is here, with that red gate. In the back, there is Pozzetta Workshop. And the offices, right here in front of us? That's right. What happens after all the original buckles arrive? They take them there. We work on them, and they go back where they came from. How many items a day are you working on? One day I did 3,350 items. They were buckles for bags. Abdul's task is the lathering. It means staying for hours bent over a tub, polishing the buckles for designer bags and shoes, and it's a very hard job. We did a lot of different brands. Prada, Gucci, Giorgio Armani, Hermes, also Ballet, Saint Laurent, Bottega Veneta, Louis Vuitton, Bulgari. I work 11 hours Monday through Friday. On Saturday, I give them 6 hours. Nobody pays me for them. The word gift was used by them? That's what they're telling you. Gift me or I'll send you away. The Chinese law rules. But not only a gifting system of overtime was in place. Part of the paycheck, about 200 euros a month, was given back under the table. They take everything away from you. But a regular contract stays in place. You have to give them back the cash. For instance, when you go to the bank, it looks as though they duly paid you everything. Then you have to go get the money and give it back to them. They ask you, what is your bank? They even drive you there. You get to the ATM and get the money. If you do it, they renew your contract. And if you don't, they send you away. This is called extortion, but this way your paycheck is clean. I'd like to talk to the owner of Polzetta if I may. He doesn't want to do the interview. Could I talk to Mr. Bingsley? There is no one by the name. Isn't he the owner of one of these 3 firms? I don't know. Goodbye. We are here on the premise of the same firm that was closed down and formerly had another name. Only the minority of the Senegalese workers was brave enough to turn to the labor unions. No complaint ever came from 100 or so Chinese workers. The Chinese know about the firm and their home. They don't care about anything else. They hired Chinese people, husbands and wives. They took work 13 hours a day. How do they Chinese live? Do they sleep there? In the parking lot? Do they sleep in the car? That's where they live. Producing in Florence has an added value. The Tuscan territory has a great manufacturing tradition regarding both leather and metalwork, so much so that Gucci made that its forte in an advertising campaign. Instead of bringing the work to China, they brought the Chinese here. They reversed the course. It's no coincidence if the issue, after taking to the streets, involving the government and especially the newspapers, subsided with the reinstatement of the dismissed workers. Nevertheless, these are the luxury workers, and these are their homes. But the fact that the production workers come out of the woodwork to assert their rights is an exception, especially where jobs are scarce. Naples is our last stop. It's one of the most important Italian leather districts. The Napoleon craftsmanship tradition is famous worldwide. For which brands did you experience the worst conditions? Bottega Veneta? Gucci? Gucci was too much. Fendi? Too much referred to the conditions? They make you sign a 3-hour contract. They pay you very little, when they want to and how they want to. A contract for 3 hours? 3 hours a day. And how long did you work? 8 hours, or even longer. What about the wage? Real low, 30 euros a day. The final paycheck? 500, 600, 470. You only did Gucci? For Gucci for 5 years. In this field, I've been working for 25 years. How old were you when you started? 12, 13. In 25 years working as a dyer at subcontractor factories, the worker talking to us dyed the leather of bags and purses for major fashion houses. His testimony, courageous for accepting to tell us, is only an example of a situation labor unions describe as desperate. But when a factory has dozens of 3-hour contracts, how can nobody suspect that it might be sweated labor? I just cannot believe that the main office has no idea of such a situation. When the size of the phenomenon of sweated labor, of underpayment, lack of rights, is so huge that it covers the vast majority of luxury workers, how can they not know? It's impossible not to know. They could tell me, it's none of my business. I gave them work. It's the factories who are responsible. I'm washing my hands of it. We are in the outer northern outskirts of Naples, beyond Scampia and Secondigliano, around Casandrino, Arzano, Casoria, all neighboring municipalities. The leather factories are gathered. Most of them aren't direct suppliers, but subcontractors, where you may find the most difficult situations. This one, in Via Paolo Borsellino, is the most visible built-up area. The rest of the factories are hard to detect. Most of the factories around here are like this yellow one here. It is simply the ground floor of the houses where someone else lives. Just go inside the courtyard and you'll see on the ground floor, instead of a garage, there's a small leather goods, shoes, or even clothing factory. We find factories who only work illegally. They are not registered. They almost don't exist. But in this case, as well, we're talking about thousands of workers. In this area, it's hard to find factories where workers earn at least a minimum wage. It's a rarity when you do find one. When the Gucci inspectors were expected, they said, "They will be here tomorrow. Clean up the factory." And the Gucci inspectors would come? Yes, but 2 days before, we were notified that the inspectors would come. We obviously had to wear our coats, ear protectors, goggles. The factory was so clean as we could only dream for the rest of the time. As soon as they left, everything turned back as it was. Did they check the contracts? I think so. Did they ever ask you anything? They weren't going to ask the workers directly, how much do you make a day, how many hours are you working? Where are our rights? We work for you, but what are you giving to us? The situation is out of control, that we are stricken by one story in particular, where they make counterfeit items, a business notoriously in the hands of the organized crime. Sometimes they also receive the real stuff. There was a seized workshop. We worked inside. I didn't know the name of my employer. He used to call us with a disposable cell phone. Excuse me? What is your name? What's it to you? He used to pay us in his car. He'd take the money from an envelope or a box on the back seat. We used to make counterfeit items. But you did realize you were also making the real stuff? Sometimes we did. How could you tell? A little tab inside was missing from the counterfeit. The manufacturing was identical? Identical. Same material, same stitching, same color, same manufacturing. Didn't they tell you make them better? No, they were just the same. How long did you work? 4, 5 months, and they still owe 100 euro. The counterfeit was better. This is the absurdity of it all. We're talking about products of incredible value, but those who make them are treated under third world conditions. When I am accusing a company for the transparency of its supply chain and the wages because I'm suspecting they are low, but I don't know for sure, I am accusing it because they are doing all they can do to save money. And they are jeopardizing the factories they hired because if the factory owners hardly scrape by, there's nothing they can do. You are jeopardizing the worker as well. They're putting money before anything else, even before people's dignity, if that's not a problem.